Hi, it's Angela here, and welcome back to this week's episode of Menopause Conversations podcast. Now, over the past few weeks, I've been sharing quite a few episodes with you on what happens to women as they go through menopause. So we've been talking about the different phases of menopause, spoken about progesterone and estrogen, and what happens when these hormones shift. And today's episode is I'm going to talk about something that is known as estrogen dominance. And this is actually more common than most women realize. And whilst we kind of get told that the problem with menopause is that our estrogen levels are dropping, it's not exactly the truth, because particularly during perimenopause, estrogen levels can go up and down like a really big roller coaster. And quite often, estrogen levels are higher than we would like them to be, and it's the higher levels of estrogen in relation to progesterone, which is on a downward trend, that causes the symptoms. And most symptoms that women experience as they're coming through this perimenopause phase of life is actually due to having estrogen levels too high in comparison to progesterone. So that's what we call estrogen dominance. I'm going to be talking about that in this video, explaining a bit more about what it is, why it happens, and what we can do about it so that you can bring your hormones back into balance. So have a listen to this episode, and I'll be back at the end of the episode to have a little bit more of a chat with you. Over the last couple of weeks, I've been talking to you about different hormones and what happens to your body as you're moving through this perimenopause stage of life. Now, I've spoken about estrogen and I've spoken about progesterone. Now, today I'm going to talk about something that is known as estrogen dominance. Now, most women think that the issue comes with having too little estrogen, that when our estrogen levels drop is when we get symptoms. In fact, that's not true. Majority of women have what is known as estrogen dominance. So what this means, I'm just going to explain this just a little bit. Where our estrogen levels are generally higher than our progesterone. Now, as estrogen will go up and then it goes down, and then progesterone basically stays low and then it goes up high. And there's kind of a crossover around about day 14. Now, but we need to keep a relative distance between estrogen and progesterone. And it's, whilst it might change, the body knows the distance it requires between the two. But what happens is, instead of estrogen being here, it goes up here. And it still does the drop and then the lift, but it's too high compared to where progesterone is. So this gap has become bigger, and this is known as estrogen dominance. And this happens to so many women. When you're in a full reproductive time of life, this is what causes symptoms that we commonly know as PMS. It's all to do with estrogen dominance, having too much estrogen. Now, as we're moving into perimenopause, and even though your estrogen levels might drop, they are still too high compared to your progesterone levels, which are also dropping. So progesterone comes down first, as I explained in an earlier video, but estrogen is too high compared to progesterone. So we have what we know is known as unopposed estrogen. And it's this unopposed estrogen or estrogen dominance that causes the symptoms. So symptoms of estrogen dominance are things like bloating, weight gain, mood swings, heavy bleeding, not being able to sleep properly, migraines, breast tenderness, all very, very common symptoms that are generally called menopausal symptoms. And they might happen at this time of life, but it is to do with having too much estrogen. And estrogen dominance is also related to allergies. What happens a lot of times for some women is they've never had allergies to foods before, and all of a sudden, as they move into their perimenopause stage of life, they get allergies to certain foods. So it's what's known as a histamine reaction. And this is often related to having estrogen too high. It's also related to autoimmune conditions. Women are always at a bigger risk for getting autoimmune conditions than men, and it is because of our estrogen levels. And when we're in estrogen dominance, we're at higher risk of getting them. So, and as we're coming into menopause, we can also start to develop autoimmune conditions. You can have them earlier in life because women have estrogen dominance their entire life. Also a higher risk of breast cancer, particularly estrogen-based breast cancers, infertility, which is probably not a big issue for women as they're coming through this stage of life, but it can, when you're younger, cause infertility. It's also related to blood clotting, fibroids, which are growths within the wall of the uterus, and it's also associated with accelerated aging. So there's a lot of things that are going on when we have estrogen dominance. So what causes it? It's one thing to know that it's happening. What causes it? There's a few things that cause it. Generally, it's to do with our lifestyle. It is all external. So estrogen dominance is all caused externally. It's caused by taking synthetic hormones. Now, whether that be the oral contraceptive pills, having Mirena coils in, taking HRT, any hormone-based contraceptive or replacement can cause estrogen dominance, particularly if it's an estrogen-based contraceptive or hormone replacement. So synthetic hormones because basically what's happening is you're putting more hormone in on top of what your body is naturally producing. So if your body naturally produces estrogen and then you put more synthetic estrogen on top of it, you're going to cause an estrogen dominance because you're actually increasing estrogen. And quite often your body doesn't really require more estrogen. It might be the progesterone, which is too low, but they're kind of focusing more on estrogen. There's also something which is known as xenoestrogens. Now, xenoestrogens are toxic estrogens that come from our environment. They're found in things like plastics, particularly when we heat plastics. So BPA plastics, when they heat and they go soft, release this chemical, which is a xenoestrogen. Now, a xenoestrogen looks very similar to the estrogen molecule within our body, but what it does is it displaces our natural estrogen in the receptor. So each cell's got it's like a key and a lock, and the lock is sitting on the cell, and then the molecule comes along and it's got to fit into the lock to actually activate it. So there's these xenoestrogens which look very, very similar to our normal estrogens, and when they come in, they fit into the lock. Not exactly, but enough to actually activate that on the cell wall. So then the body thinks that it actually acts as if it's an estrogen. So now we've got toxic estrogens in our body, we've got our natural estrogens in our body, and if we're taking a synthetic hormone, we're putting that in there as well. So we've got too much estrogen. This is where the liver plays a role, because when we've got all this estrogen going on, different types of estrogen, everything eventually ends up at the liver, and the liver kind of sorts things out, and it's designed to basically get rid of what we don't want and keep what we do want. And the liver, if it's working properly, will basically clear through the xenoestrogens, the synthetic hormones, get rid of them, and then we just maintain our natural hormones. Unfortunately, many women's liver is not working as well as it's supposed to, so this sorting isn't happening. So now we have the xenoestrogens, synthetic estrogens recirculating throughout the body. And we've got more and more. And then as we're adding more in, because we keep taking a hormone pill every day, or we keep being exposed to different chemicals that have got these xenoestrogens in them, then we're just getting more and more, and the liver's getting a bigger and bigger load. And then if we're drinking alcohol, which also can have xenoestrogens in it, depending on what they put in it, which chemicals they use. If we're not eating properly, basically the liver is just struggling, and it's just circulating, and it's not getting rid of what it needs to. And if you are chronically constipated, that will also cause a problem, because it means what is getting ready to be cleared is not being cleared, because it's not actually coming out. It's one thing for the liver to do its job. We then need the bowels and the kidneys to detoxify and get rid of what we don't want. So if you're not, basically, if you're not moving your bowels on a regular basis, you've got toxins that are continuing to sit within your body. What causes poor liver clearance and the bowels not to be working properly? is not eating the right foods. So we need to be eating foods that are high in fiber just to help everything to move through. We need to be eating foods that support our liver function. And that's lots and lots of vegetables and things like garlic and all the liver supporting foods. So a lot of your green leafy veggies are all really good for supporting the liver. And also cruciferous vegetables, so broccolis and all of that, collies, all of that, that's all really good for supporting the liver as well. And stress. Look, stress plays such a big role in. So how are you going so far in the conversation that I'm having all about estrogen dominance? Stay with me because we're going to be talking about stress, which is really, really important in a couple of minutes. But just before we do, I'd like to share with you Janet. Janet is one of my clients, and she's going to tell you a little bit about the work that she's done with me, the free workshop, the menopause workshop called Secret to Thriving in Menopause. She's going to share a little bit about that with you.
Hi, I'm Janet and I'm 60 and I'm feeling pretty good. I believe that I'm feeling good now is because one of the reasons, of course, I've met Angela earlier this year when she ran a 7-day hormone reset program. I found out my health type being a diplomat and just wanted to learn more and just continue to find out stuff from Angela. I decided to do her Embrace program and learn about my health type, found out what was the best time for me to eat, to sleep, to rest, to exercise, what foods were best for me, and my personality traits, which turned out to be the biggest aha feeling for me. I found out stuff about myself, why I do things the way I do things, why I react the way I do, and most importantly, it's okay to be me, which was something that I would sometimes struggle with. Why do I react this way to different things? Why do I react that way? And now at 60, I've found out why, and it's quite refreshing to know why. Sometimes I would have tingling in my hands and feet and things like that, especially in my hands if I was sewing or stuff, things like that. And I found that has reduced. And also part of the Embrace program, I was on different types of medication. So I completely stopped my medication for my cholesterol. I'm still on a few other things, but very low doses. So I thought that was a bonus, as well as I'd lost some weight along the way. Also being part of the program, you're accountable for your goals. Like at the beginning, you set goals and for different periods in your life and stuff like that. And being part of a group we help each other to achieve our goals. You get support from the other members, and the thing that Angela teaches is not about fad diets, it's about lifestyle changes, and it's not something that happens overnight, but it will happen, as they say. I've just loved learning things about myself and not being afraid to take care of myself and not be ashamed to take care of myself. And I'm looking forward to the next year and see what that all brings and staying fit and healthy. So thank you, Angela. You're wonderful.
If you want to get the type of results that Janet gets, why not join me for the Secret to Thriving in Menopause workshop? It's completely free and kicks off on the 8th of May. If you want to be part of the workshop and learn the things that Janet learned, and you'll definitely learn a lot more about stress that I'm sharing in this podcast. The link to register is bit.ly/menopause_workshop with a capital M for menopause and a capital W for workshop. So bit.ly/menopause_workshop. Go there, register for the workshop. If it happens to be after the 8th of May when you're listening to this podcast, go to the same link and put yourself on the wait list for the next workshop, because I run these quite a few times a year, so you won't miss out. So I hope to see you at the workshop, and have a listen to the rest of the podcast. Bye for now. What do we do about it? we've got an idea that we might have estrogen dominance, and it's actually, you can get tests for it, but most of the tests that you get done through your doctor, so blood tests will not tell you if you have estrogen dominance. Most doctors will not even be able to talk to you about estrogen dominance. There's not something that they really recognize as something that happens. If you want to find out, if you want to get testing done, you can get what's known as Dutch testing, DUTCH testing, and that's something you can send away for. You do it at home and you send it over. It's done out through this through the US. But just go with your symptoms. Honestly, if you're displaying these symptoms of PMS, or this weight gain, or this sore breasts are a big one, you've got estrogen dominance. It is so common. So many women have it. So it's a hormone imbalance. And if you can see that, you can feel that there's some bit of cycling that's going on with your symptoms, then it'll be that you've got too much estrogen. And it could be caused because your progesterone levels are low, but you've still got too much estrogen. We need to bring estrogen down. So there are a few things that we can do. And these are general things that you can do anyway. So whether or not you get a blood test or a Dutch test to tell you if you've got estrogen dominance, if you follow these, the body will just actually balance itself up. Number one is a liver supporting diet. As I said, eating lots of foods that support the liver. And a liver supporting diet is made up of fruits and vegetables, fresh, unprocessed foods. So it's getting rid of the processed foods. So it's getting rid of the sugar foods, the alcohol, the soft drinks, the breads, all of the processed foods. We need to get rid of that because all of them have got chemicals, additives, preservatives, which all put a load on the liver. So we need to take the load off the liver so the liver can actually recover. And it can do that really well on its own. We just need to give it the opportunity to do so. So as I said, avoiding alcohol. Caffeine is another one. Avoiding caffeine, that's a very highly sprayed crop. Unless you're drinking organic coffee, it's high in chemicals. So we need to be getting rid of the chemicals. Where possible, having organic foods. If you can't afford organic foods that you can actually wash or remove the skin that you're not going to eat. So maintaining regular bowel movements, and that comes when you're eating lots of fruit and vegetables and drinking water. It's important that you're drinking enough water, and that keeps everything going through. So it keeps the bowels moving, it keeps the kidneys moving, and which is what clears toxins out of the body. And there's also another type of estrogen, which is actually really good for you, and it's known as phytoestrogens. And these are estrogens that are found in plant foods. So having a high vegetable diet will actually help you because it'll have the phytoestrogens in it. But there are 4 specific seeds that you can use to balance up hormones in something called seed cycle. The seeds are sesame seeds, linseed seeds, sunflower seeds, and pumpkin seeds. And you have different seeds at different times of the month. We have 2 at the beginning in the first 14 days and 2 in the second 14 days, and you grind them up and add them to your food. But even if you just generally add those seeds into your diet, even if you don't want to go with cycles, just adding that into your diet is going to help because it just helps to balance up that estrogen. If your estrogen levels are a little bit low, it enhances the action of the estrogen. If your estrogen levels are too high, it brings it down. So it has a very balancing effect. So by putting phytoestrogens into your diet. That's it for, I think, all I want to talk about on estrogen dominance. But it was just to give you an idea that the problem is not always that your estrogen levels are too low, and going and taking hormone replacement to increase the estrogen level doesn't always work if your estrogen levels are too high, and it will actually cause more symptoms. And weight gain is one of the big ones. Weight gain is a big side effect for women who go on HRT. Many of them complain about that. Is so common. If you're a woman that experiences PMS before your periods, good chance you've had estrogen dominance. If you're experiencing any type of symptoms, breast pain, hot flushes, good chance that there's some estrogen dominance going on there somewhere. But there's a better way of getting through menopause. There's a better way of moving through this stage of life. You don't have to struggle. And as your hormones are shifting, it doesn't need to be a really tough time of life. Yes, your body will be changing, but when we embrace these changes, we can actually move through this time of life with relative ease. And I'd like to share with you how this could happen. And I am running a free workshop called The Secret to Thriving in Menopause Workshop. Now, we kick off on May the 8th. And if you would like to register, the link to register is bit.ly, so bit.ly/menopause with a capital M _workshop with a capital W. So bit.ly/menopause _workshop, and capitals for the M and the W's. Important to put those capitals in. And if you register for this workshop, what you will learn in during the 5 days of the workshops being run is that it's not just about the hormones. And yes, I've been talking about the hormones over the past episodes and explaining to you what happens, but it's not all about the hormones. In fact, hormones are simply messengers. So we need to work out, why are the hormones getting messages and giving messages that are causing us to experience these symptoms? And we can actually get to that underlying cause and address that cause. And I'm going to give you a little bit of a clue right now, and something that nobody is talking about is that the answer lies within your genes. And that's not the genes you're wearing on your butt, your genes, your genetic blueprint. The answer lies there. When we can understand how our genes work, how they are what we call expressed, we can get a really good idea of how we can actually turn all this around and eliminate your symptoms, drop those extra kilos that you're holding onto, and thrive in this time of life. So I really want to share this with you. As I said, we kick off on May the 8th. Now, if you happen to be listening to this podcast after May the 8th, then go to the same link, bit.ly/menopause _workshop, and there'll be a wait list, and you can put your name on the wait list for the next time I run it. I run this about 3 or 4 times a year, and you will get to create during this workshop your own personalized blueprint of how you can move through menopause. The things that you can do that will work for you. That this is the big thing that I work on. This is why we look at the genes, is what makes you different. And when we understand what makes you different, we can then come up with a plan that works for you, that may not work for anybody else, because you are an individual. Your journey is your journey. It is not the same as anybody else. Yes, you might have some symptoms that are similar, but you've got a different story. You've got a different health story. We need to be looking at that. We need to be addressing that. So I hope to see you on the workshop. Once again, bit.ly/menopause _workshop, capital M, capital W. It will be in the show notes. If you're out and about and you don't have a chance to write that down, go and look the show notes up. I will put the links in there. Now, just before I do go, I want to thank you for listening to me. I'll be back next week. Next week we'll have a conversation with an exciting woman who's got lots to share. And the following week I will be back onto the menopause hormones, sharing some information with you. Now, if you think you've got friends who might be interested in learning more about menopause, who are going through this journey as well, please share this episode. Tell them about the podcast. Because the more women that get to know this, the more women will be able to embrace this time of life and put themselves back in control. That's my main reason why I'm doing this, is to help women understand that you can be in control. Your hormones don't have to be in control. So please share this podcast. You'll find it on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, your favorite podcast streaming app, or you can go to my website and you'll see a button that says podcasts, and that will take you to all the individual episodes and all the past ones as well. So thank you for being with us. I'll be back next week with another exciting episode of Menopause Conversations. See you later. Bye.